Greetings, this is Griff Ruby with my next Asimov story review. This next story, released in early 1941, in fact the March 1941 issue of Cosmic Stories. Apparently this very tiny and obscure magazine only ran for 3 issues. One of the big problems is that these stories were generally given to its publisher for free, which really meant that a number of famous writers had some throwaway stories they couldn't put anywhere else. This place would take them because they were not going to pay anything for the stories, with one interesting exception of relevance to our sequence here, and that was Isaac Asimov, who, having been unable to sell the story here, namely the sequence sense, he basically said, well, here, you can have this. And okay, fine. And then later on, somebody was talking, and he says, any science fiction writer who gives stories away for free should be blackballed. And here you are, this struggling young author, trying to get your name and reputation and literary ability established, and then you hear that. So he's kind of like, oh great, I already did that, what am I going to do now? So he calls the publisher of the story, Donald Wollheim, I think it is. Wollheim, I know his name. I forget what his first name is. It's on here. Yeah, it is Donald Wollheim, who in fact was one of his fellow Futurans. That is to say, a little club of science fiction fans who would talk about the stories and have these magazines and discuss story ideas and compare notes and so on. Kind of friendly rivalry where they're all trying to, really do some great stuff and come up with great ideas. And Donald Wollheim was a member of that club, and it's like, this is a club. You don't let your fellow members down. So when Donald Wollheim said, hey, I'm going to come out with a new magazine. If you got some story you can't get rid of, send it to me. I won't pay you for it, but I can use it. Well, having done this, now he's very, very concerned. So he comes back and says, well, you can use the story if you do one of two things. Either one, put a pseudonym on it, or two, if you want it under my name, pay me $5. Very, very low nominal thing. Extremely low. But it is about a humorous side point. Namely, that Donald Wollheim says that's the greatest word rate you'll ever get. $2.50 a word, because it's Isaac and Asimov, $2.50 for each of those. He never did beat that word rate. So the story isn't overwhelmingly interesting. In fact, it is rightly and properly regarded as one of his least. But it does actually have a couple. It does have some interesting features. Yeah, it's listed on the table of contents. Kind of have to look for it a little bit. Let's see, since it's not halfway down. Isaac Asimov. Okay, so, but no blurb there. So I guess it's a piece of the future. So, but it's on page 87. It does have one small piece of artwork and a blurb here, and a tiny blurb. So here's this sort of being, maybe he's a Martian, kind of swirling in the air like, ooh, that's wonderful. Alright, The Secret Sense by Isaac Asimov, author of Homo Soul, Friends, etc. Okay, that's the only blurb it has. But the picture has a little taste. The Martian couldn't taste, and their hearing was bad, but they had a secret sense all their own. So, let's see here. It must have been a Martian equivalent, which occurs a little later in this story, of somebody who's playing music on a piano, I assume. sensitive fingers of Lincoln Fields. He's a piano player and an absolute, well, he's a sensuous person here. He's really interested in all the things that are pleasing and stops at nothing, apparently nothing, and is apparently spoiled rich enough to be able to do anything he wants to do with that money. But at the moment, he's enjoying the Strauss waltz, and through half-closed eyes, he could almost see the whirling figures pirouetting about the waxed floor of some luxurious salon. Presumably later on, the Martian, having their equivalent sort of art form, will probably similarly enjoy their piece. And so, I guess the idea is it's really an awesome thing. Except for one thing. Well, here's the idea. You got beings on Mars and beings here. Beings here, the Martians, when they come here, because first we have the Martian visiting Lincoln Field. He has to use a walking stick because of the higher gravity of Earth. Okay, but his senses, at least corresponding to ours, are very bad. He has no color sense at all, so he's total monochromatic vision. His hearing sense is near tone deaf. You play different notes on a piano. If they're a fourth apart, he's not sure there's a difference. Maybe there's a fifth, of an octave from say from C to G. It's like, okay, I think there's a difference there. Play a fourth from C up to F. And it's like, if I wasn't paying attention, I'd think that you were just hitting the same note twice. Imagine being that scale of tone deaf. So he can sense some of the rhythms of it all, but it doesn't really, it doesn't mean anything to him. And here's this Earth guy just feeling pity for him. Well, don't feel too much pity. First of all, we've never missed it. We don't know what we're missing. Obviously it's something wonderful for you or happy for you, but, we have our own compensations. What are those? So how it comes out, they have another sense. They prefer not to discuss. Reason being that apparently it is a sense that can be induced to work within us and cause us to be able to detect something that we cannot detect otherwise. Well, the long and the short of it is they do this. Our Earthman is later visiting on Mars, now having to wear giant lead shoes so that he won't go floating up or something. That's what the Earthman had to do on Mars, apparently. Okay. And he visits the Martian at his domicile. And let's see here. The Martian being named Garth Jan. So, got a bad name for the Martian. So, Garth Jan. Now, Garth Jan has a couple of visitors come by when the Earthman is visiting as friends. They were friends for other reasons, unimportant. To the story, just that they're friends. It's like, you owe me a favor, okay, I'll give you this. So he's up there visiting his Martian friend, and there's this very expensive sort of musical instrument, a sort that's not found in the on Earth, but would be something that a rich Martian might have. So we have this rich Martian, so he has a guest come over to play this instrument because the guest can play Martian, the equivalent of music that appeals to this other sense they have, one that can actually detect electricity in wires and things like that. Okay, kind of a magnetic sense, I guess. Which, I don't know, we've got some life forms that can detect that, there's some fish that have organs along their sides that literally can detect magnetic fields and probably weigh things in that and know what's going on. And so forth. And sometimes we wonder, some of the navigation we do might also, like birds flying, might also have a magnetic aspect. So, this is to say we couldn't have something of it, but it's undeveloped. Well, the Martians have an inoculation that they can give. So our Martian fellow has two of his Martian friends come for a visit. One, who's a superb and extraordinary performer on this instrument, and 2, a doctor who could administer the inoculation. There's the one big catch. You will get to do this, but only for 5 minutes, and it will burn out the cells, which it does it in the course of that 5 minutes, after which you'll never experience it again. And so it's like after that, you can't see it again. It's like being blind. Imagine you can't see it at all. Somebody gives you a shot, and you can see it, all of everything. It's awesome. It's beautiful. Look at these colors. Wow. Look at that sunset. Wow. You know? And then 5 minutes later, it's gone. And it's just this one memory. Well, I once saw really something great. Now I know my blindness. You know, I'm blind. So that's the story in a nutshell. Now, what is also kind of fun and interesting about the story is that this contains the first kind of hint of something that would later surface in the Foundation series and in one of the stories of the Galactic Era surface, namely the Visi-Sonor, or Sono-Visi in one typographical error instance, a musical instrument that somehow stimulates the optic nerve as well as the auditory nerves. And as we recall in the Foundation series, the mule, that great dominating, first citizen of the galaxy, happened to also be an extremely adept player of the Visi-Sonor. One of the few. Apparently, you have to have kind of a certain mental disposition. He had it, and he also found it useful for his ways of controlling large numbers of people all at once. So it was, in fact, very useful for his purposes, spreading despair. But I get ahead of myself. Oh, in the Galactic series, The Stars Like Dust, we meet up with a figure named Gilbert at Hinriad, who is inventing stuff. And one of the things he's invented is some sort of a crude musical instrument. It's a Visi-Sonor and everything but name. So we see this thing, but these have some different things that, unlike what's in the secret sense, that can only be detected or enjoyed by a Martian, and not by an Earth person, except by the special process that would stimulate and then blow out special cells in the brain that somehow can detect it, but their ability to detect it would be ruined by the attempt. This now becomes something that can, in effect, be, enjoyed by anyone, or suffered by anyone. And I think of the times where the mule and also Gilbreth, too, each use the same instrument to do the opposite of pleasure. Sort of like the musical equivalent of a highly discordant chord or a very loud noise that's very irritating and annoying and painful to hear. Okay, something like that. So it does have that. It's the first glimpse of that concept. So that's actually kind of cool. Other than that, it's an unremarkable story. Now, as far as the published version, you can get the full text of it in early Asimov again. And comparing the texts, well, you saw the artwork. I've read out what the little blurb there was, and then a little caption on the drawing had a picture. And the only other difference I observed is towards the very end, there's a place where the name of the guy, Lincoln Fielding, who's the Earthman in this story, his name is misspelled once. The I is missing, which they fixed for the book. Other than that, I didn't see any different because, again, they're trying to capture the original, other than obvious little typographical things. They want to capture the original so that you can catch it as an artifact in its full early pulpishness. Anyway, but this is where it was seen, and other than the early Asimov, it's the only place any story like that ever sees the light of day. Well, that's it for the Secret Sense.